Welcome to PM Express. My name is Stephen, and tonight we're talking about education. Education and its cost was a major campaign issue during the December elections. Now, it looks like Free Senior High School did not get the majority approval, so parents and guardians must keep paying for their ward's second cycle education. Recently, the Ghana Education Service told them how much they should expect to pay for the 2012-2013 academic year. The approved fees for fresh boarding students is 360.5 Ghana cedis, plus Parent-Teacher Association PTA charges, while that of continuing boarders is 220.05. Now, day students are to pay 140 Ghana cedis. Foreign students will also pay tuition fees of 468 Ghana cedis per term. Tonight, we'll talk to the Education Service to find out how they came to these figures. How affordable is it for the average Ghanaian, and how do they plan to deal with the canker of unapproved fees and extraneous charges? On the other side of the coin, we have the Conference of Heads of Assisted Secondary Schools, CHAS, who must make do with these approved fees. We'll find out from them if the rates quoted are enough to fund quality secondary education. Do they think it is feasible to fix the feeding fee at 2 Ghana cedis, 20 pesos per student per day for the next 3 years? And we will deconstruct their stance on charging unapproved fees. Charles Parker Alote, I beg your pardon, the head of Public Relations Unit of the Ghana Education Service, was expected to join us in the studio, but she will join us on phone. And then the president of the Conference of Heads of Assisted Secondary Schools, CHAS, is here in our studios. He's Samuel Oforeje. He's my guest in the studio tonight to discuss these issues, along with Charles Parker Alote, who will be on the phone. You can join us with your comments and suggestions by text 1760. Post them on our Facebook wall, facebook.com/Joy News on TV. And our Twitter handle is also at Joy News on TV. You can send us tweets there, and we'll be glad to read them out to the whole world. So, Mr. Foreje, it's great to have you in our studios.
Thank you very much.
So, CHAS must have a lot of concern with this 2 Ghana cedis, 20 pesos per head per day. I mean, for the next 3 years, is this practicable that you can cater for our children, you know, with this amount of money?
Thank you very much, Mr. Host, for the opportunity. I think this will give us the chance to tell our story. All along, we read from the press, we hear from the radio, issues about what heads are doing. Sometimes you see screaming headlines, heads cheating, and that kind of thing. I mean,
it's charging unapproved
fees, and it's rather unfortunate sometimes. I must start on the note by saying that, yes, sometimes we see certain items on the bill which are unapproved. But invariably, almost all the items you see on the bill of students, I would say to a very large extent, are approved levies or fees. I must first disabuse people's mind of this erroneous impression that parents are paying tuition fee. There's nothing like tuition fee.
There's nothing like tuition
at all.
So what do parents pay?
At all. They pay fees or levies, because tuition fee is supposed to be used in paying teachers, okay? But the teachers in public institutions are all paid by government, and all workers in public institutions are paid by government, so they don't pay tuition fee. So let's get that clear, because
so
sometimes
those fees are what? Boarding fees.
Boarding fees. And
are they feeding fees or just boarding fees to cater for the utilities and things?
Yes, I will explain.
Okay.
When we talk of the boarding fee, we have 2 components. We have what we call the feeding fee, and then we have a bed user fee. The feeding fee is the amount you've just mentioned, 2 cedis, 20 pesos per student per day.
Okay.
And we have 1 cedi per term towards bed user fee, so that if there are any breakages or distraction in the use of beds and other facilities in the dormitories. We use that to cater for that. But to your question, whether the 2 cities, 20 pesos is sufficient, and I think I normally say there's any time I have the opportunity of meeting people, that if I want soup worth 10 pesos, I'll get it.
You will get it.
And if I want soup worth 10 cedis, I'll get it. So it depends on the type of meal that the student will get from the 2 cedis, 20 pesos a day.
Let's be realistic. I mean, you as an adult,
yes.
if you're feeding with 2 Ghana cedis, what will you eat? Let's say lunch.
Yeah.
What will you eat with 2 cedis?
That is the almighty question. But the only advantage we have in institutions is that when you purchase in bulk, the unit cost goes down a bit. That is one advantage we have over there. But that aside, you see, let me explain. The feeding fee of 2 cedis, 20 pesos is not only the ingredients and the foodstuffs that go into it. It includes the fuel. Now all schools pay for water. We pay for electricity. So all these components. And if we have to replace cooking utensils in the catering department, all these are factored into the 2 cedis, 20 pesos.
So let's
you can imagine.
Let's break this down. I know you're not pinpointing to tell me whether this 2 Ghana cedis is enough or not enough. But let's work some maths. Yeah. You are in a specific school.
That's right, Accra Academy.
You are at Accra Academy. Yeah. Now, how many students, new intakes, do you have at Accra Academy?
If you talk of the overall intake, there are about 640, but not all of them are boarders.
Yeah, so how many boarders do you have?
We graduate the boarders from Form 1, Form 2, Form 3. Currently, we have close to about 1,000 boarders, but the Form 1s are just about 200, 250. Yeah, that's
so you have about 1,000 boarders.
Yes.
So with these 1,000 boarders, it means that per day, you have an allocation of 2 Ghana cedis, 20 pesos by 1,000.
Yeah.
That's 2,000.
That's about 20,000.
Is it 2,000 or 20,000?
2,000.
We're talking about 2 Ghana cedis by
2,000.
So 2,000 Ghana cedis. And 2,000 cedis to feed 1,000 people a day.
I like your calculations.
Does it work well? Work out well?
I haven't even thought
about it.
No, because
but that's the reality on the ground.
But we buy the things in bulk. So that is why sometimes it's difficult to do the calculations.
Yeah, that's true.
You outside there had done it with that so perfectly, whether 2,000 can feed 1,000 students and that kind of thing. Yes. You see, as I stated in my intro, we buy the items in bulk.
In bulk.
Okay, so if it's rice, we have a certain number of bags of rice, and we have how many kilos that can be used to feed the 1,000 students. So you see, invariably, and incidentally, we are feeding students at the age when they eat more, they need better quality food to eat.
Nutritional value.
Nutritious. You see, but these are the things that we are lacking. And I must assure you that until we all agree that something is done about this, I'm not too sure whether the students will get the type of nutritious food that they will need. I wouldn't mind if I can show you this.
Yes.
This is a document which was produced by not only GES, but we had the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, we had the University of Ghana, the Nutrition Department, we had other stakeholders, and we prepared this document called A Menu Guide for Institutional Feeding in Ghana. This document was prepared in 2006. I wouldn't even mind leaving a copy with you.
Yes, so I would greatly love a copy, so I will digest it and get a better understanding of how much goes into feeding.
And the introduction gives the type of meal that we should give to students or children at that age. And then it gives us also the breakdown of the unit cost of the food items at that time. We were using the OCDs. Yeah. So we have it. And then what the research work also took into consideration the 3 zones, that is the northern, the central, and the southern zones. Because you would agree with me that a bag of rice in Accra will be a bit cheaper if you add transportation cost to the north. In the same vein, if you are buying millet from the north, it will be cheaper than in Accra. So the group that did this work took all these factors into consideration and arrived at wonderful figures. But nobody seems to be working with this document.
Who is supposed to be working with this document?
Those who set the agenda.
Who are the ones who set the agenda for the education service, for the educational institutions? Is it the Ghana Education Service or the Ministry of Education?
The process is this. We start the motion, that is CHAS, and we have a sister institution we call APTI, Association of Principals of Training Technical Institutes. So they also have some students of there, so we call them APTI. Then, when we are not too comfortable with the figures that we have in terms of feeding and other fees, we write to GES and make proposals. When we send the proposals to GES, it goes through the GES management, then through the Ghana Education Service Council, and then finally on the table of the Minister of Education. And after he has also reviewed that, invariably it ends in cabinet, because there are financial implications, especially when the feeding fee is agreed upon. You know, our brothers and sisters in the northern sector of the country continue to receive subsidies for their feeding. So if the government agrees to pay, say, 2 cedis 20 pesos, or agrees on the feeding fee of 2 cedis 20 pesos, that is the amount that they will have to cough and pay the northern scholarships. So sometimes these are the reasons why when it gets to the ministerial and then the cabinet level, they look at the government's ability to honor that obligation. And therefore, and I'm sure you may have heard that, I think late last year, we wrote for an approval, an interim approval of 2 cedis 50 pesos was given to us, and it was reversed because the process did not end. I think it ended on the table of the minister, and therefore a few issues came up. I think that one is purely a governmental issue, so we will not delve into that area.
It's interesting, really. I mean, I went to a boarding house. I went through Form 1 through to 6th form. So the number of years I spent in secondary school possibly is much more than the recent current educational trend where they spend less years in school. I'm sure you have experience which span those days and now. If you look at feeding cost those days and now, what fundamentally, what has changed? Is it cost of living that is making feeding more expensive? It kind of baffles me why as systems, you know, prices increase and economic situations change, the same amount of money is put forward for feeding. This is worrying.
Yeah, I think it's basically the cost of living. Because you rightly said, I've been in this system for the past 35 years, about 26 in senior high schools, spanning from Abuakwa State College those days, the system. So I've understood the system all over these years. But as you rightly said, it is the cost of living vis-a-vis the amount that the students are paying. When I give you this document and you study it, in 2006, you will see the unit price of, say, a bag of rice.
Compared to now.
Compared to now. And how much the students were being fed on. And the proposals that this committee, which came out with this guide, also said that if we wanted at that time to give the students the best of meal nutritious, then there were other things that we had to do. Either parents were to pay more, or government had to subsidize the difference, or that buffer stock, food buffer stock should be made available so that the schools could purchase from those places at lower prices than we go into the stores.
But that's happening, is it not happening? The National Service Scheme last year, towards the end of the year, provided some quantum of maize to selected schools. I mean, you could take advantage of that.
Interestingly enough, I took advantage of it. I went to the Winneba depot, took about 200 bags of maize. That is the 50 kilo, not the big bag. But by the time I had consumed that and was going for another batch, it was finished. Now, take the number of schools in this country. Currently, they've written a letter to us that they have about 7,000 bags of maize. And it's not the jumbo bag, but it's the mini bag. That's about 50 kilos. So this 7,000 bags cannot
suffice for all the schools.
No, not even in Greater Accra. Not even in Greater Accra.
So let's get practical.
Yes.
How do you feed your students? What do you feed them?
We feed them with varied meals. You have your breakfast.
Breakfast consisting?
You can have what you call the Hausa cocoa.
Cocoa.
Then you can also have what you call, in local parlance, rice water. You can also have the ordinary porridge we call cocoa. And then you go with
cornmeal porridge.
Yes, cornmeal porridge.
So rice pudding, cornmeal porridge, and ordinary porridge.
Exactly. These are what we go in for
nutritious. Raw like that, without bread?
Oh, we add
without
bread. We add bread. But I remember there was a time in the past when we used to have what you call the cocoa sakura.
Yeah.
Because at that time, you could only buy the maize, you ground it, and then you just prepare the porridge.
During my secondary school days,
I'm sure you also went for the cocoa sakura. Yeah, yes, because at that time...
So that you need to consume huge volumes of the raw cocoa before you can...
And there you are. And how balanced is that? It's just with carbohydrate, you feel your tummy.
Yeah, a lot of carbohydrate,
anyway.
Then most of the students get rashes, beriberi rashes.
You're right, you're right.
Introducing new health concerns in schools.
And then in the afternoons too, you'll go for, say, what you call the motu. Then you can also go for the plain rice with stew. You can also go
stew
for
made of flour, sometimes gas.
Well,
gas soup.
No, of late.
You don't do that
We are stopping that, please.
I'm remembering my secondary school days.
We are stopping
you possibly might be understanding where I'm coming from.
Yes. I know.
So my concern really is that if you have these issues to raise with governments, when you made the proposal to ask for more, you were not giving, or perhaps at the point you were being given, it was withdrawn. Yeah. Are you going to cope like this for the next 4 years?
No, indeed. I just spoke with my secretary, and when we received the letter or the circular approving the amount, we saw that statement that they were going to put a cap on the fees for the next 3 years.
Standardization.
We've quickly written back to the Minister of Education, we've written to the Director General, that, well, if they will hold constant the prices of all items for the next 3 years, we have no problem. But if what we are hearing, the next moment there is an increase in fuel prices, and then that will affect our vehicles even moving to go and collect these items from wherever we pick them, and you say we should maintain, then probably we are going to dilute
the quality of
the food. And it will not be in the interest of the young boys and the growing young men.
The ones who need food best.
They need food best. They need food best. And I think as a nation, we should look at it critically and stop playing the ostrich. Individually, when these students come to school as day students, I mean, you cannot give your boy even 3 cedis for, say, lunch. What would he buy? But sometimes we agree that because I'm repeating this statement over and over again,
because
we buy in bulk. Yes, we have a considerable. But we should not take advantage of that and then do things that will affect the quality of food that we give to the students.
So what reasons have the Ghana Education Service given you for introducing this standardization? I do remember that at the IEA debate, the president spoke about this standardization of fees for senior high schools. No matter where you are in the country, the fees remain the same. So you're saying that this is enforced now, right?
Well, yeah, invariably it's enforced.
It is enforced?
Yeah, it is.
So what reasons have you been given for this standardization?
Well, as a group, we have not been called and given any reason. You see, that is why sometimes we are a bit at a loss as to whether the practitioners are consulted and then their views taken on board. I must confess, when we write, I have children in school. They may not necessarily be in the school where I teach, so they will also be eating over there.
And you'll be paying.
And I'll be paying. Would I love such a thing to happen to my own child? I won't.
Sacrifice their nutritional needs.
So sometimes when people speak about these things as if headmasters are in a world of their own, they don't care about anything, they don't know that parents can afford, is it affordability. But can we use that? Sometimes the question I ask some parents when they come and tell me that they cannot pay the school fees, I ask, when we are on vacation and the child is at home, do you give him water to drink? Or do you not feed the child? And if you feed him, how are you able to raise the money to feed the child? That question is never answered. But as soon as they are brought into school, because of some of the utterances that they hear on air, I mean, some of them think that the heads are loaded with money, so they should be able to feed the children. I got a parent with me only the day before yesterday, a final year student. We are in about the 3rd week. He came to the boarding school without a penny. So when the woman came, she was now coming to ask me to allow her to pay at her own pace. And I said, then probably your child will also eat at your own pace. I mean, it's just the gist of it. Yeah. But I was just sending a message that if we don't bring these little 2 cedis, 20 pesos per student per day together, how can we go and buy the items in bulk? In any case, sometimes when we even go for the items on credit, my brother, I tell you, if you know the pressure we go through, I would wish you do a statistics of heads who have been in charge of boarding schools and have gone through these stress and look at how they end. Sometimes they end up frustrated. Some will end up with certain types of things like hypertension because the pressure on you. And you cannot look on while these young boys or girls are also sitting.
You have 1,000 mouths to feed.
Some schools have 2,300. Tamale Secondary School.
It must be very frustrating. You think that our political heads or authorities responsible for shaping education are perhaps playing ping pong with education, right?
To some extent, I would agree. I would agree with you. You see, the point is this. We know that it's not everybody who can afford it. What measures are we putting in place to take care of those ones? I can give you a simple example. In my school and some of these top schools, you will have over 80% who come from these private preparatory schools. Some of them pay as much as 7 million a term.
In their primary schools?
Yes, 700 Ghana cedis. Some are even paying 1,000. And they are not boarders. They are not boarders. Okay, they are not boarders. But when they come to senior high schools, the termly bill, when we go into other details, should not exceed 400 Ghana cedis, except when they are coming in the first year. And there are certain items they purchase as a one-time purchase when you are buying school uniforms and say the, how do you call it, school house attire. All these things are one-time payments. When they come, they pay. So when they are entering in the first term and they pay about 600, 700, that one is dependent on the items that thereafter, if you look at the bill, thereafter, apart from the 205 Ghana cedis, which is the 2 cedis, 20 pesos times the number of days they will stay in the boarding house in a term, it comes to about 205. Then you have something like examination stationery, which is 6 cedis, library, 3 cedis, SRC dues, 2 cedis, entertainment, 1 cedi, 50 pesos, and then science resource center, 2 cedis. This is what you add to. And yet people will come having paid so much in the private schools, and they come here and they tell you they cannot pay.
So let's get it straight. Now before we went into before we continue, we were talking about this allocation of money from government, which is not sufficient. It looks like the problem is two-pronged, that government is not bringing enough money and parents are not willing to pay. So what? Your solution is for parents to begin to think about paying realistic rates for their children's education.
Or conversely, the government should also be able to pump in more.
So what should it be?
Well, I cannot tell. You see, it depends on the, how do you call it, the philosophy, the political philosophy of the government in power. If we think that education is important to us, I know that if the budget is right, education takes a very big chunk. And I must tell you that apart from the feeding of the students, there are infrastructural deficiencies in the schools. It's quite recently that we got a project which will give us a bigger library. Accra Academy is about 82 years old. We went to our current site in 1962. At that time, the student enrollment was just about 600 or even less. And the library space could seat just about 50, 60 students. It is the same library space for 2,300. So it tells you that we have infrastructural deficiencies, so the government is handling that aspect as well. So if it takes over the feeding, unless, as I said earlier on, unless it is the philosophy, the policy of the government to do that, fine. If it's not the philosophy or the policy of the government, then I think parents should be encouraged to pay a little more.
You think realistically parents should be paying?
Oh, definitely.
Well,
definitely, unless of course, as I said, unless of course the government is ready to take up the difference.
Well, you're watching PM Express. My name is Stephen Enti, and I'm here with the CHAS president, Samuel Ofori-Adjei, who is also the headmaster of Accra Academy Senior High School. We'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll still make attempts to get onto the phone lines to get Charles Pakalote, Head of Public Relations Unit at the Ghana Education Service, to get some explanation. So the issue is that, are you willing to pay more for your children's education, senior high school education, for them to get quality? Or you're willing just to sit back and watch government take over the cost of running these schools, even when it does appear that government is struggling to bear the overall cost of education? We'll take a break and we'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to PM Express. We're discussing education, and Blue Rose Limited, winner of the Best Low Income and Affordable Housing Developer in Africa, brings you its Shelter for All promo. Buy a house from Blue Rose today and get a free multi-TV dish. Blue Rose City near Budumburam boasts of amenities like schools, clinics, shopping and recreational centers. You can call their hotline on 020-2029-622, 0302-241-459, 020-4353-041. The numbers again, 020-2029-622, 0302-241-459, and 020-435-3041. Blue Rose Limited, quality and affordable housing for all. Like I said, we're still discussing senior high school education. The cost of it, should we as parents pay more, or should we sit back and watch government take the full cost of education? We're still trying to raise Charles Pakalote on the telephone, and then we'll have a chat with him about the costs of the newly approved fees that senior high school students are supposed to pay. Meanwhile, I still have in the studio Samuel Ofori-Adjei, president of the Conference of Heads of Assisted Secondary School, Charles. I'm told that we have Charles Pakalote on the line now. Good evening, sir, and thanks for joining us on PM Express.
Yes, good evening, and I say good evening to your teaming viewership.
Right.
I must immediately apologize for not being able to attend the studio in person, so that we, together with the president of the Conference of Heads of Assisted Secondary Schools, we together educate the public on about school fees. Right. I am extremely sorry because I was in the middle of a meeting when you called me to come for this program.
Thank you, though, for joining us on phone. Anyway, so let's quickly speak about the calculation of the approved fees. What went into it?
Yeah, thank you very much. Together with the leadership of CHAS, we looked at the current market trends, especially for feeding food items on the market, the cost of food items, the cost of books and other things. And then we came to an agreement that truly there must be an upward review of especially the feeding fees and other fees payable.
Right, so
the overriding factor is the market prices of goods.
So it does mean that regularly, routinely, when prices go up, your approved fees will also go up, correct?
Yes, exactly so. I mean, it is a reflection of what pertains on the market. and especially the inflationary trend that prevails.
Right. So let us understand better. At the IEA presidential debate, President Mahama raised an issue of standardizing fees for all secondary schools, all senior high schools, no matter where they are in the country. Was this standardization taken into consideration during the calculations?
Veritably so. That was taken into consideration. But I must say that for every school, and it's part of our GES policy, we do recognize the parent-teacher associations, and therefore we do recognize the fact that the PTAs come together and they levy students. They come together and agree to pay for certain costs. Government do recognize the rights of parent-teacher associations to organize such activities to raise funds to support the running of our schools. And therefore, whatever agreement they come into may vary according to the various schools or the particular school.
Right.
And therefore, it becomes difficult to talk about standardization when you take into consideration the agreements reached with the PTAs. But as far as we are concerned at the Ghana Education Service, whatever fees that are approved with the consent of the Ministry of Education cuts across all the schools.
Right, so let's talk about this feed-in fees. When we calculate, it works out to about 2 Ghana cedis, 20 pesos per student. Is it per day? Yes, per day. Per day. Is this enough to feed students? For example, Accra Academy, whose headmaster is here, Samuel Oforeje, is saying that he has over 1,000 mouths to feed 2 Ghana cedis, 20 pesos. Is this a realistic rate to feed your child with?
Well, we encounter problems because, as I said earlier, because of the rising prices of goods that the schools do purchase on the market. However, we also take into consideration the fact that much as we want to provide for quality education, we also want to make sure that fees are affordable for parents. And therefore, if you take the 1 CD 80 pesos that was paid previously, we say that the adjustment should be enough to cater for the students.
Right.
Bearing in mind the fact that when you do bulk purchases, you benefit from what we call the economies of scale.
Right. So, Ms. Alote, I'll hold you there and come back to the studio because I would like this to be an interaction more than talking to you alone. I mean, I need Mr. Samuel Oforeje to react to some of the issues that Ms. Alote has raised. One is that the heads, the leaders of CHAS were in a meeting to come to an agreement of how much these fees should be, and that, in fact, you had known all through the negotiations that this is where it's going to be.
I think I stated earlier on that anytime we wanted an increase in fees, we presented proposals to the management.
Correct.
Okay. But initially, we had requested for 3 CDs. But this was scaled down to 2 CDs, 50 pesos by management. That was not done at a joint meeting.
Okay.
As to how they arrived at the 2 CDs, 50 pesos, this was not done between us at a round table, but we had sent proposals justifying why we thought 3 CDs would be okay. But they decided on the 250.
But at the end, you got 220.
Yes, anyway. Initially, I have a letter to that effect. Okay. Initially, the 250 was approved.
Okay.
But later on, that letter was withdrawn. And then we wrote back that we were not too satisfied with the withdrawal of the 250. So it went back and forth, and finally, the 230, 2 CDs, 20 pesos was approved, which I think a copy is what you are picking to interview us on. So what I must say is this. Yes, normally, we start the process. We as CHAS, we start the process. And when we send it, ideally, there should be a joint team to agree. But it is when the management has met and taken a decision, then they write back to us. It is not done at a roundtable conference where the CHAS executives are there The management is also there. So please, this is the issue. So we arrive at this. No. It's when we send it and they also meet, then they take a decision and bring the response back to us.
Ms. Alote, I'm sure you heard Mr. Foreje, but let's focus our discussion on quality. With how much parents are supposed to pay and how much government has set, as approved fees, do you genuinely feel that this will give the students quality nutrition, preparing them sufficiently for quality learning and overall quality education, really?
Yes, thank you very much. I want to appreciate the concerns of the president of CHAS, Mr. Foreje. Yes, it's true that they bring a proposal, and I'm happy he said that they do bring the proposal. They are managers on the ground. I don't want it to sound as if we are on a collision course with our managers on the ground. They do bring a proposal, and we look at the proposals and try to fix realistic figures as far as school fees are concerned. And if I have to look at the policy guidelines in school fees collection, it is to permit the orderly establishment of a reasonable system of fees. You understand me? Mm-hmm. And if the word reasonable should be underlined, it means that we have to look at the pockets of our parents, the pockets of our guardians, and the pockets of the students. And therefore, when they do bring these proposals, we do sit down. It's not as if we do alienate the input of the leadership of CHAS. It is their proposals that we look at, and then we try to set the fees at reasonable limits so that every parent can afford it. Otherwise, we'll run into a problem where the fees will be too much and many parents cannot afford it. Already, we are having problems with default from a lot of parents. And Mr. Foreje, is the best person to appreciate this concern. Therefore, what I want to say is that, yes, we do look at their proposal, and then we fix reasonable fees.
So the fees you have set, you're convinced that they are reasonable, one, to ensure that parents can pay, and that it will also be enough to feed and cater for the kids in school.
A market survey on this thing. And therefore, as I said earlier, if you do bulk purchases, we do understand that you enjoy certain economies of scale, and therefore some of the prices may come down. We don't want a situation where we'll have to be chasing parents because they will have to pay unreasonable fees. Where would it lead us if we are not able to collect the fees because they can't pay? You do understand.
So what about utility bills, ICT, libraries? I mean, those costs, who bears them?
Well, the government of Ghana bears all those things, and that's what we call the government subsidy. Those are what we call the absorbed fees. Government pays for building maintenance, sports fee, culture fee, sanitation fee, textbook user fee, etc., etc. And therefore, if I have to give you some figures, the total cost for all these government subsidies come to about 64 cedis 35 per student. That is per year.
Per year?
If I say per year, you multiply that by the 3 terms.
That's not much.
Already.
That's not much, right?
Yes, but it's already a large capital outlay on government pairs.
So what should the way forward be, really? I mean, it does appear that each time there are approved fees, CHAS says it's not enough. GS and the Education Ministry thinks it's perfectly fine. So it does appear that the quality of education and the overall well-being of our students in school remain uncertain during these negotiation periods. What should the way forward be?
Well, the way forward, firstly, is what has been stated by the president of CHAS, that, well, perhaps we need a deeper collaboration on fixing fees. From what he's saying, maybe there has not been better understanding about how the figures are paid, because maybe at the end of the day, they are not invited to a round table for us to fix this thing together. But the fact still remains that they bring the proposals and we look at realistic figures. So firstly, maybe we have to collaborate deeper with our heads of institutions so that we appreciate their problems better. Secondly, if the education goes out there for parents to understand that prices are constantly going high, and therefore there's a need for them to make a little bit more investment in the education of their children, then we'll be getting there. Now, the situation is that most parents are already embedded by other commitments. And apart from that, too, we constantly face fuel rises in our country. And once fuel is raised, we know that it has a direct relationship with the prices of goods. These are factors that we have to consider in future.
Well, Ms. Alote, we'll still hold you. We'll bounce back to the studio, and then we'll come to you when we need more reactions.
Give me enough notice,
yes.
I'll be able to
That's fine.
them,
Yeah.
So, it is our duty to educate the public together, and we are ever willing to collaborate with any media station that calls us to do so.
Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Parker Alote, Head of Public Relations at the Ghana Education Service. We'll take a quick break, and you can still send in your comments by text 1760. You can post them on our Facebook or facebook.com/Joy News on TV. And if you're on Twitter, you can send us a tweet. Our handle is Joy News on TV. We'll be right back. Welcome back to PM Express. We are talking about education, and I have a lot of your messages coming in. I'd like to read some of them, and then we'll put some of the issues to Mr. Samuel Foreje, and later we'll get onto the phone lines and put some of them to Mr. Parker Alote. Kwabena Jima Jr. said, I paid 1,298 Ghana cedis in October for my kid brother. Please, these figures are being used to deceive us. We're paying huge sums of money. And Nellis Blanco says, Joy News, you keep doing this thing. It's not fair. Get both reps from CHAS and GES in the studio than any other resource person on phone. If you really want to know what went into the decision on how much to pay, I find it strange that the GES rep will rather be on the phone. Well, Nellis, we didn't create this scenario. You heard Mr. Parker Alote say that he couldn't make it to the studio. So as best as we can, when we are deciding on a panel, we try to balance all sides so that we get fair representation. So we tried our absolute best since morning to get a rep from the Ghana Education Service. That is why we had him on telephone. So I hope that you're content with the answers that he is given while speaking to us on telephone. And Raymond Ofosuabuaji says, I want to know if these fees are really applicable to every school, because fees paid at Adesado College and other schools are more gargantuan than what is being given here. Ellen Osei says, it's rather unfortunate that our leaders are playing with our education, health, they're playing it with politics. How long will it take? Well, they wrote something there. I can't really. I think it's tree or something. I can't read that. I'm sorry. And Jambiedu Manaf from Boku, you say, better Ghana, quality education for you. And John Mahama. So don't complain. Just go and pay, or let your children sit at home. And Bell Mystical says, the day student at my place will not love this at all. I don't know what you mean. I reckon that you're saying that they wouldn't love to hear the fees that are being paid. And Abdul Muyasir from Tamale, I hope I got your name right, says, when are the new fees supposed to take effect? I mean, which academic year? 2012-2013, Abdul, that's for your information. And then Ohini Nana Kwame J says, ridiculous. I believe if you go to the various institutions, you realize they pay more than that. How is CHAS ensuring that heads of schools adhere to their directive, which to me is grossly inadequate? I don't understand what you mean, but if you mean directive to pay approved fees rather than unapproved fees, we'll put that question to Charles Parker Alote. And then Daniel Osafo says St. Rose's Senior High School is collecting 735 for the last 2 terms for final year students. Al Mashoud from Boku, you say the fees charged is still moderate for what is important is quality education. Government should rather invest in our education and forget about this Black Star issue. They're wasting our taxes. I reckon that you're still recovering from Black Star's very unfortunate defeat to Burkina Faso yesterday. We're all getting used to the shock of Black Stars being kicked out of the AFCON, and well, that's what we have. So, and are the final years paying the 3rd term fees? If yes, what becomes of the announcement? And Steve, please ask the following for me. The difference between bed user fees and bed maintenance fees. Is it true that fees collected do not go to government and government gives subsidies in addition? This is from Castro, from Insamam. Castro, I'll get some answers for you there. And then I completed junior high school in 2003, with aggregate 11, but couldn't continue to senior high school due to poverty. Can I further in any government senior high school? This is from Gideon from Kumasi. So, Ms. Oforeje, let's talk about some of the things which I think you can address.
Yeah,
one of which is somebody who says that the fees in Adisadel College, for example, are higher than a lot of other places. And then Kwabena Jima says that he paid 1,298 in October for his kid brother. And so the figures we are hearing, which are supposed to be uniform or standardized, are really kind of throwing dust into our eyes. Your reaction, sir?
Thank you very much. These are genuine concerns, and we, the leadership of CHAS, are also aware. The figures which they are churning out are not lies, but I just want to explain something. The gentleman who talked about 1,298 in October, I suppose is a new student.
Yeah, you were explaining that earlier.
Yeah, so let's get a few things clear. In some of the established schools, they have certain items. Okay, these are the approved government fees, but there are certain items which are peculiar,
unapproved.
But they are peculiar to the schools.
Like?
You would agree with me that, say, in Fansipim, they have a college blazer.
Yeah.
They have a school cloth. They have a school tie. Okay, all these are items which the students buy at the beginning. But I don't expect that the amount should go to that high. So as to what I added up to the 1,298, I wished I saw the bill.
Tell me what adds up to Accra Academies so that we can compare whether it's anything close to 1,298.
No, I can tell you, Accra Academy last Form 1, I think nobody paid even up to 500 cedis.
I see.
Yes, because I try as much as possible to avoid a situation where I overload the parents. I've also explained to the heads that some of the items, you could spread them over the 3 terms. But you see, normally the argument is that when the parents are coming in the first term, they try and look for money and pay whatever you want them to pay. So if there are certain items like supplementary readers, you see the government supplies some books, but not all of them are available. So we buy supplementary readers. I think of late you've been seeing students in college vests.
Yes.
These are things the students will even rush on you. The school vest, for instance, I didn't want to load my bill because as the CHAS president, I must be an example for others to copy. My students, the SRC, came to me. They brought signed list by the students that we want you to bill us, to buy this. You see, so listen.
They want to look funky when they go out.
They have the, how to call it, the tracksuit in school colors. These are later day things that the students, during our time, we didn't have these things, except the college blazer of old. But I know that some of the schools have reintroduced it. My SRC even came and asked me yesterday whether I'll be introducing the blazer, that is the top with our school crest. So,
they want to feel the swag.
Exactly.
A cracker
so these are some of the
things.
So
these things incur cost.
Incur the cost. You see, so all I've been telling my members is that, please, before you put these on the bill, get the approval of the parents. Incidentally, the students do not pay fees. It is parents who pay fees. So when the students bring the request, what we do is that we write or we raise these issues even at PTA meetings. I send newsletters to parents to explain that this is a request. So sometimes we even design forms for what we call parental consent before some of these items, which the students can come on you, that say we need them. Our colleagues, when they go for intercore, their colleagues are wearing it, you are not wearing it, then you look odd. So these are some of the things which may have raised the fees to that level. But I would wish that the schools involved will also look at this, because after all, if you raise the fees to that level and you are not able to get to the students to enter, what have you done? So the other option is, if it can be spread, assuming they are really relevant to make the student happy, to make them learn, why not? But let's look at the mode of payment spread over a period of, say, 3 terms.
And let's get this explanation from Castro, who says that, who is asking, what is the difference between bed user fees and bed maintenance fees?
The standard fee I know is bed user fee. And
it is the same. I mean, you use it to maintain the
Yes,
beds
especially.
Anyway.
If, for instance, you go to certain schools, if they are using the wooden bunk beds, either there's insects and so on, you have to spray them every term, and all this. When there are breakages, you have to change either the slabs on the side or the boards across the distance. So it's just bed user fee. That is what we know. Okay. If there is any other fee, then I think the head of the school should explain.
And then he also says that, is it true that fees collected do not go to government and that government gives subsidies in addition?
Yes, let me explain this. You know, we call the fees internally generated funds. And if I collect, say, 2 cedis, 20 pesos per student per day, I need to pay the supplier who brings me flour, rice, or whatever. So immediately we pay. So that money does not go to government. If I have to buy, say, newspapers for the day, we have to buy graphic sports for the library, there is a library fee. Okay, so in fact, Mr. Pakalo mentioned library fee as the absorb fee. It's not part of the absorb fees. But that one is paid by the student. So when I was giving you the breakdown, I think I mentioned library fee. That is paid by the student. So that one is paid and we use it. So if I have to buy the newspapers for the library, I have to stock a few more books. I don't need to send this money to government before it is brought back to me. But we have auditors who come periodically to see how the amount is used. And then with the subsidy too, hitherto, until about 2001, parents were paying for utilities, they were paying for textbooks user fee, but these ones were absorbed by government. And he gave you about 60-something cedis per annum. Yeah. It is a little over 22, 23 per student per term, which the government pays to us. And that one comes in bulk. Before you will be paid, you do what we call a sign list. At the beginning of the academic year, all the students in your school, you write their names, type nicely, and get a column for their signature. They will all have to sign. And then you send it to the ministry. And based on the enrollment figure, they multiply by either 20 cedis or whatever. And this is paid to the schools to be used in, say, sports, culture, how do you call it, first aid, postage. If we are posting the reports of students to parents, all these are part of the absorb fees.
So what do you take any money to government at all?
No.
No.
No. No,
not at all. So it means that Castro is right to say that
right,
fees collected do not go to government. And then there is this person who said that he completed JSS in 2003 with aggregate 11, but couldn't continue to senior high school due to poverty. Can I further my education in any government senior high school? This from Gideon in Kumasi.
Unfortunately, no.
Unfortunately,
2003 is about 9 years away. The regulation is you shouldn't have left the JHS for more than 3 years.
So if you shouldn't have left for more than 3 years, what options are available?
So if you completed, for instance, in 2011, somewhere March, April, or in all the district offices, where they sell what we call re-entry forms. So when you go to the district office near you, you buy the re-entry form, you fill. And this will be sent to the CSSPS, Computerized School Selection and Placement System. You know that this time It is not the heads which admit, who admit. It is the computerized school placement system which sends school. So when you fill that form, it will be put into the general pool when they are doing the placement, and then you'll be placed.
So this
but
guy,
incidentally,
this guy,
2003, he's out.
He's totally out.
He's out.
He's just out of the educational system.
So he can.
That is pathetic.
But he can use the private system. We have the private schools.
Private system.
Yes, and some of them write the May, June exams.
But the guy is complaining about poverty. What makes you think he can afford private fees?
Well, after almost 9 years, I thought he was not just sleeping. Probably he did a few.
He might possibly not be doing anything.
Well,
I mean, if you're from a poor background, this is a challenge to our educational system,
indeed,
right?
Indeed, it is.
And then so it means that there are thousands and thousands of people who fall in Gideon's category who have no chance at all.
It's rather unfortunate.
Does that worry you?
Indeed, it worries us.
What recommendations would you put out for such people?
You see, I have had this as my sing song every time. I told somebody, if I am the headmaster of Accra Academy and I have reached this level and I'm paid well, I don't see any reason why somebody should look after my children for me. I don't see any reason why. In any case, whatever subsidy that is being paid to me, since I can pay, I'm giving you a hypothetical situation,
sure,
please.
Sure.
Since I can pay, why don't I pay so that the money that is being used on me is channeled into taking care of those who cannot afford? And there is a way we can get those people.
There must be a way.
There should be.
As a government,
We should
must
be
have a
able to say,
system
yes.
for which those who cannot afford
Look, I'm telling
would
you,
get the opportunity
Mr. Host,
to go
you
to
see,
school.
some people have gotten so much. And therefore, what they are paying, let me tell you a story. A lady came to my school, I think about 2 years ago, during the admission time. So when I gave her the bill, first term admission, the child is coming to stay in school for 3 months and eat. I was giving him 2 school uniforms, 2 house dresses, sports kits, about 25 exercise books, notebooks, all at less than 400 cedis. So the woman asked, "Is that all?" I said, "Yes, that's all." So are you sure? Will the child eat in the school? I said, "Yes." She left 1,000 cedis and said, "Look, after you finish taking out your this, the rest, you keep it in the accounts, and when I have to pay more, you tell me." So this tells you that there are some who can pay. Let's find a system. Exactly.
Where those who can pay, must pay, and those who cannot pay, government must support them.
That's it.
My name is Stephen Anti, and I was here with Samuel Oforeje, President of CHAS, Conference of Heads of Assisted Secondary Schools. Charles Pakalote, who is Head of Public Relations Unit at the Ghana Education Service, joined us on phone. And thanks to you for sending in your messages and comments and texts. Join us again tomorrow for another interesting edition of PM Express Personality Friday. Good night.